Moon over Bharat, Modi, the Chai Wallah, who would be king. A Jyôtish reading of the birth chart of Narendra Modi by Joaquim Rahul. In late February of this year, 2026, the Prime Minister of India crossed several thousands of kilometers to stand inside the Knesset, the Parliament of Israel. The bombs had been falling on Gaza for 2 years and 4 months. The Gaza genocide, the amplified killing in the occupied territories, the brutal occupation and destruction in Lebanon, everything present for the world to see. The dead, by the count of even Israeli media, accepted from Gaza's own health authorities, numbered somewhere above 70,000. United Nations special committees had used the word genocide. Academic commissions had used the word genocide. Outside experts had used the words genocide. Narendra Modi did not use that word. He used a different word. He used the word brother. 27 memoranda of understanding were signed during this visit. A free trade agreement was announced. A critical and emerging technology partnership was established. The Israeli Prime Minister, calling his guest by name, spoke of an iron alliance against extremist Islam. Both men referred to themselves as ancient civilizations, addressing one another. The host's wife came to the airport to see the visiting Prime Minister off. This is the man we are here to read. Welcome to the Henchmen Gallery, the series in which I read the charts of public figures who have shaped the present moment with a clear depth function, using the tools of Vedic astrology. I do not deal in predictions, I describe what the chart says. The chart speaks to a soul, an arc, a structural pattern. It does not deliver a verdict. It offers a diagnosis. The work is the work. The chart speaks. We listen. Before I begin, 3 things I want to clarify, so we are all on the same page. First, this is Jyôtish in the Vedic tradition, not Hindu. The distinction matters, and I will return to it at length because it is central to what I'm about to do. Second, the birth date I'm working with carries a Rotten rating of DD. That is the second lowest rating an astrologer can work with. It means the sources conflict. I use 11 a.m. in the morning in Vatnagar, the 17th of September 1950. Most online sources use this time, including Deva.guru, the chart calculation system I rely on. At least one source uses 10 a.m. instead. The difference of 1 hour shifts certain placements significantly. Where the chart's reading depends on minutes of birth, I will tell you. Third, I will not be telling you what to think about this man. The chart describes, the viewer concludes. Let us begin. Part 1. Vedic, not Hindu. The Vedas are older than what most people will call now Hinduism. They are actually older by several thousand years. They predate the Brahmanical codification that turned a wild, plural syncretic ritual culture into the priestly hierarchy we recognize today. They predate the Puranas. They predate the temple religion of the great gods. They predate the caste structure, the caste structure, as it now stands. Scholars distinguish between two phases. There is the Vedic religion, sometimes called Vedic Brahmanism, which ran roughly from 1500 BCE to 500 BCE. And there is a religion that developed afterwards, the synthesis we now call Hinduism from the outside, which emerged across the centuries that followed by absorbing local cults, indigenous deities, ascetic and tantric movements, foreign influences, and post-Vedic philosophical traditions. The continuity between the two systems is real. The identity is not. Jyôtish, the science of light, belongs as a Vedanga, an auxiliary limb, to the Vedic stratum, not the Hindu stratum. Its core grammar predates the political and religious projects that now claim ownership of it. The political project I refer to is called Hindutva. It was articulated in the early 20th century by Vinayak Damodar Savarkar in conscious dialogue with European fascist movements of the same period. Savarkar wrote admiringly of Nazi Germany's racial purification. The Hindu nationalist organizer E.S. Munje met Mussolini in 1931 and returned to India seeking to replicate the fascist youth movement. The organization that carried this ideology forward, the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, commonly referred to as RSS, was founded in 1925. Its early leadership openly praised Hitler and Mussolini through the late 1930s and into the war years. M.S. Golwakar, the second supreme leader of the RSS, wrote in 1939, the year the Second World War started, that Germany had shown how racial pride and racial purity could be defended through purgation, and that, in his words, Hindustan had a great deal to learn from this example. These are not contested historical claims. The texts exist. The membership rolls exist. The photographs exist. The Bharatiya Janata Party, the political arm of the RSS, the BJP, was founded in 1980. Its candidate for Prime Minister in 2013, 2014, 2019 and 2024 was a man who had been a full-time pracharak of the RSS since 1971. He was first inducted into RSS Shakas at the age of 8 in 1958. His name is Narendra Damodar Das Modi, and I am about to read his chart. I am about to use the tools of Jyôtish, an authentic Indian science, to describe a man who claims to embody an authentic Indian tradition. I want to be clear before I begin that the tradition I am working in is not the tradition he claims to defend. The Vedas do not belong to Hindutva. The Vedas predate Hindutva by 3,000 years. Sanatana Dharma, the eternal way, is older and stranger and wilder than the political project that has appropriated the phrase. Jyôtish belongs to the Vedanga corpus. It is mathematical, it is empirical, it works because it works. It does not require nationalism to function. Part 2. A note on bridges. Before I proceed, one more thing about the tradition I work in. There's a school in Indian astrology called Tajika. It is one of the 3 recognized systems of Jyôtish, alongside Parashara and Jaimini. Almost no one outside India has heard of it. Almost everyone inside India who practices annual astrology uses it. Tajika is medieval Arabic astrology, translated into Sanskrit, beginning in the 13th century of the Common Era. It's 16 yogas. The configurations Tajika practitioners use to read each year are direct linguistic translations from medieval Arabic. The Sanskrit word ittasala is the Arabic ittisal, meaning application by aspect. The Sanskrit word kambula is the Arabic qabul, meaning reception. The word Tajika itself comes from a Persian word that means Arab. The primary source of all of this is the 9th century astrologer Sal ibn Bishr, working in the courts of the early Abbasid Caliphate. The transmission into Sanskrit happened along the trade routes of Gujarat, the same western Indian state that produced the man whose chart I'm about to read. The first major Sanskrit work on Tajika was likely written by Sama Rashima, possible in the late 13th century. By the early modern period, Tajika was being practiced by Brahmin court astrologers across Mughal India. And the 17th century scholar Balabhadra wrote a 1,100-page Tajika treatise while serving as court astrologer to a Mughal prince. This is the civilization Modi claims to defend, a civilization in which Persian and Sanskrit astrologers worked side by side, in which Arabic medical texts were translated into Sanskrit, in which the Unani Ayurveda tradition, the Greco-Persianate medical knowledge absorbed into Indian medicine, sat next to classical Ayurveda in libraries from Lahore to Madras. These traditions did not flourish despite Hindu-Muslim contact. They flourished because of it. And anyone who tells you that Jyôtish is purely Hindu is either ignorant of Tajika or hiding it from you. The civilization that Hindutva claims to defend is a civilization that was syncretic, plural, layered, and porous, and remained so for more than 1,000 years before the partition of 1947. Hindutva is an invented tradition, to use a word my university professor Klaus Anthony coined in the context of Japanese religion and history. And that is the ground I am standing on as I begin this reading. Part 3. The Life. Narendra Damodaras Modi was born on the 17th of September 1950 in the small town of Vatnagar in the Mehsana district of what was then Bombay state, now Gujarat. He was the third of 6 children. His family belonged to the other backward classes, a categorization in Indian caste politics that places his birth somewhere between the lower castes and the dominant upper castes. His father, Damodar Das Mulchand Modi, ran a tea stall at the Vatnagar railway station that you can see on this picture, and the young Modi worked there infrequently as a boy, and this is why he keeps telling the world that he was a former Chai Wallah become president. prime minister. At the age of 8 in 1958, he was introduced into the local shaka of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, the RSS. He met Lakshman Rao Inamdar, the man who would become his political father and mentor. From this point forward, the RSS, and not his blood family, was the structure that shaped him. In the early 1960s, in keeping with the caste tradition, his family arranged a betrothal to a girl named Jashodaben Chimadal Modi. They were married when she was 17 and he was 18, but the marriage was never consummated. He abandoned his wife and left home shortly afterwards. The couple never divorced. He kept their marriage a secret for several decades. Only in 2014, on the eve of his elevation to the prime ministership, did he publicly acknowledge that he was married. According to his biographer, the secrecy was necessary because the RSS Pracharaks at that time were expected to be celibate. The bond to the organization took precedence over the bond to his wife. In his younger years, he spent the late 1960s traveling the Indian subcontinent. He visited the Belur Math near Calcutta. He went to the Ramakrishna Ashram in Almora. He returned to Gujarat. Then, in 1971, became a full-time Pracharak of the RSS. He worked under Inamdar, and from 1975 to 1977, during Indira Gandhi's emergency, he organized opposition to the suspension of constitutional rights. He printed pamphlets, he wore disguises, he traveled at night. He wrote a Gujarati language book about that experience. In 1987, he was assigned by the RSS to the BJP. That's the RSS. And then he was assigned to the BJP, the political arm of the RSS. He proved adept at electoral organization. By 1998, he was the BJP's General Secretary for Organization, the most powerful internal position in the party. In 2001, he was sent to Gujarat as Chief Minister, replacing a predecessor whose handling of an earthquake had damaged his political standing. In February 2002, 4 months into Modi's first term as Chief Minister, a confrontation broke out at the Gothra railway station between Hindu pilgrims returning from Ayodhya and local Muslims. The Sabarmati Express caught fire shortly after departing. 59 people died in the S6 coach, including women and children. The cause of the fire has been contested across multiple official inquiries, one concluding pre-planned arson by a Muslim mob, another concluded the fire originated inside the carriage and was likely accidental. A 2011 trial court conviction of 31 Muslims has been the legal outcome. The historical question remains open. What followed in the days afterwards is not. In the days that followed, anti-Muslim violence spread across Gujarat. The state government's response has been described by independent scholars as complicit. Modi's own statement at the time, that what was happening was a chain of action and reaction, has been quoted ever since. By the time the violence ended, the official death toll stood at over 1,000. Independent estimates put it above 2,000. The vast majority of the dead were Muslim. Approximately 150,000 people were displaced into refugee camps. Numerous women and children were among the victims. Mass rapes and mutilations were documented. The political scientists Martha Nussbaum, writing several years later, described what had happened as ethnic cleansing carried out with the complicity of the state government. And Modi? Well, he remained Chief Minister of Gujarat for 12 more years. The United States State Department denied him a visa under the International Religious Freedom Act. He is the only person ever to have been refused entry to the United States under that law. The United Kingdom and the European Union also refused to admit him. The bans were only lifted once he was elevated to national power. He won the Indian general election of 2014 with an outright majority, the first single-party majority since 1984. He won again in 2019 with an enlarged mandate. And in 2024, his party lost its single-party majority, and now he governs in coalition. Across his 3 terms, his administration has overseen the abrogation of Article 370, which removed the special constitutional status of Kashmir, the introduction of a citizenship law that for the first time in Indian history used religion as a criterion, granting a path to citizenship for persecuted non-Muslim refugees from neighboring countries while excluding Muslims explicitly. The construction of a Hindu temple on the site of the demolished Babri Masjid, which Modi himself performed the groundbreaking ceremony in 2020. The deepening of laws against cattle slaughter, of laws against so-called love jihad, the democratic backsliding documented by Freedom House, by VIII, by multiple academic studies. And in late February of this year, 2026, he stood in the Knesset and called the Prime Minister of Israel his brother. He is the longest-serving Prime Minister of India outside the Indian National Congress. He is one of the longest-serving leaders of the world's largest democracy. He is, by every available account, the most consequential political figure in modern Indian history. That's the man. And now, on to the chart. Part 4. Scorpio Rising. The chart for Narendra Modi, calculated for 11 a.m. in the morning, Vatnagar, 17th of September 1950, with the true Lahiri Ayanamsha, gives us a Scorpio ascendant at 1 degree 16 minutes. The Lagna, the ascendant, sits in the 4th pada of the nakshatra of Vishakha. The pada lord is Jupiter. You can see here the red marked house, house 1, with the ascendant in Scorpio. The nakshatra deity is Indra Agni, a dual deity, the king of the gods paired with the god of fire and sacrifice. These are really ancient Vedic gods. The nakshatra of Vishakha, this is a depiction of the stars forming it, is a forked nakshatra, 2 stars, 2 ruling deities. The shadow expression of Vishakha is a divisive ambition, the figure who unifies one group by setting it against another. The light expression is single-pointed achievement directed towards dharmic ends. In my opinion, Modi is operating in the shadow register, but he is accessing the energetic intensity of the nakshatra's whole range, the fire and the king, the sacrifice and the rule. Pada 4 of Vishakha falls in the Navamsha of Cancer, ruled by the moon. So the deeper soul pattern of this ascendant is anchored in the maternal, the mass, the motherland. This is significant for what follows. He does not lead through ideas alone. He leads through a cultivated emotional bond with what the political imagination calls Bharat Mata, Mother India. The lord of his ascendant is Mars, Mangal. Mars sits also in the first house, as you can see on top. A bit difficult to read because the red is similar to the background, but there's Mars and Moon. In its own sign, Svastika. By every standard measure, this is a powerful placement. The lord of the body sits in the body. The warrior is in his own house. The ruler of Scorpio occupies Scorpio. In Shatbala strength, at 185%, this is the strongest planet in Modi's chart by classical strength measures. There is a complication though. Mars is at only 0 degrees 56 minutes. He has just barely crossed the boundary between Libra and Scorpio. And this boundary is Rashi Sandhi, the junction between two signs. And it marks one of the more structurally fragile zones of the zodiac. The fragility is real, but very specific. Mars is powerful, yes, but Mars is also in transition. The strength is real, the footing is uncertain. And the same is true of the ascendant itself. The ascendant is at 1 degree 16 minutes Scorpio, very close also to the boundary and to Mars. And Mars is not alone in the first house. The moon sits there, besides him, at 8 degree 49 minutes Scorpio. Scorpio is the sign of the moon's debilitation. This is the central wound of the chart. The moon, the karaka of the mind, of the mother, of emotional life, of the masses, sits debilitated in the first house conjunct the warrior planet. The natural seat of empathy is in its weakest position. There is in Jyôtish a rule that changes this picture though. The lord of the sign of debilitation must be in a kendra, an angular house, either from the ascendant or from the debilitated planet, in that case the moon itself. So Mars rules Scorpio, and Mars sits with the moon in the first house, which is a kendra from itself. So the condition is met. The debilitation is technically cancelled. This is called Nichabanga, the cancellation of the debilitation, which describes exactly this configuration. And yet, the cancelling planet Mars is itself, as I said, in Sandhi in a very low degree. The savior of the wounded moon is itself kind of wounded in his transition. The cancellation is technically valid, but structurally it's fragile. The wound never fully heals. It scars over. And the scar holds, but it is scar tissue. The man's emotional bond to the masses is not absent. It is not severed. It is intact, but damaged. There is one more layer to the moon's placement we should look at before moving on. The moon at 8 degree 49 minutes of Scorpio sits in the nakshatra of Anuradha, the second pada Navamsha ruled by Virgo, by Mercury. Anuradha's nakshatra deity is Mitra, one of the Adityas in classical Vedic religion, paired with Varuna. Mitra is specifically the god of sworn friendships, contractual alliances, oath between equals, treaty keeping. He is the deity who oversees the binding of one party to another by formal pact rather than by blood or by hierarchy. By the time post-Vedic Hinduism consolidated, Mitra worship had effectively died out as a living cult. He is, like much of the genuine Vedic stratum, older than the religion that now claims him. Mitra deifies exactly the kind of bond Modi's diplomatic style is built on: the personal friendship pacts, the brotherhood with Netanyahu, the iron alliance with Israel, the rapport with Putin, with Trump, with Bolsonaro, the hand-holding with Macron, the cultivation of Modi as friend of strongman as a foreign policy method. There is one specific verbal tick in his speeches worth flagging. Modi's signature vocative is mitron. He uses it 10 times in each speech. Mitron is the plural vocative of mitra, friends, companions of the sworn brotherhood pact. The chart shows that the deity governing his moon's nakshatra is precisely the god he is invoking with every mitron he utters. His mass feeling, his bond to the audience, his emotional address to the people runs through the deity of sworn brotherhood. He is not loving the masses. He is sworn to them in the mitra register, and they are sworn back. The pact is contractual, and the bond is hierarchical. And the bond is Saturn-ruled. Anuradha's nakshatra lord is Saturn. Modi's Atma Karaka, soul planet, is Saturn. The wounded moon in his Lagna is structurally bound to his soul program at the deepest level. Whatever else we will discover about this Saturn in the coming segments, what matters here is that the soul program holds dominion over the nakshatra of the debilitated moon. The mother feeling never gets free. It always operates inside the Atma Karakas organizing framework. This is the structural answer to a question the chart implicitly asks. Why does the wounded moon function so effectively in his political life, despite its debilitation? Because Saturn organizes its expression. Mass feeling for Modi does not exist as mass feeling. It exists as Saturn's project, channeled through Mitra Pact, organized into a sworn brotherhood structure. One more correspondence worth naming. Anuradha's symbol is the lotus. The BJP symbol is the lotus. The wounded moon in his Lagna sits under the lotus banner of the nakshatra, whose deity is the god of sworn brotherhood. The chart and the party share the same flower. And the moon's Padanavamsha lord is Mercury. The same Mercury we will look at shortly, fused to the sun in the 11th house. The maternal mass feeling, when traced to its deeper layer, ends up at the same fused king voice that runs the communication apparatus. The whole thing is one apparatus. This is the surface of the chart. Mars in his own sign in the first house, with a wounded moon beside him in a fragile but functional configuration. A warrior with a scar over his heart. The Lagna in Vishakhapada 4, the forked star, anchored the Cancerian Navamsha of mother and mass. The body of the chart, in classical terms, is strong. The interior, as we have already started to see, is something else. Now we look at what shapes this body. Part 5. The Wounded King. Now in Jaimini astrology, the planet at the highest degree of any sign or in the chart is called the Atma Karaka, the soul indicator. It describes the soul's incarnational program, the central project of the incarnation. It carries the most amount of karma that will play a role in this life. It's the soul's planets, and in this chart of Modi, his Atma Karaka, his soul planet, is Saturn, Shani. And as you can see here, it's placed in the 10th house, the little SA. I have to change the coloring at one point. You see here Saturn in Leo with Venus. Right? Saturn sits at a very peculiar degree. He sits at 29 degree 40 minutes. Very, very end. Seconds, minutes of Leo in the 10th house. And the 10th house is one of the houses where Saturn is the natural karaka. It's the senate of the life. It's the house of action. It's where Saturn, who likes hard work, can actually do the work, right? It's also the house of public life. It's karma in the active sense. The karma we perform in the world and that the others will see. And that's why it's called often the career house. And Saturn, the planet who works like like a donkey, is Atma Karaka in the 10th house is already a striking placement. It means that a soul has come into this life to do public work, to be visible, to act in the open. But there are some buts. It's never easy. The sign is Leo. Saturn is in the sign of the Sun. And the Sun is Saturn's greatest enemy in Jyôtish. Also in the mythology. It's actually his father, but the father who doesn't recognize his child. Little excursion. Today I'm recording this part of the video on a Saturday, and it's not any Saturday of the year, it's Shani Jayanti, the birthday of Saturn. It's a new moon, and it's quite a special day. So, interesting coincidence. And Saturn is slow, and Saturn is the servant. The mythology says that Saturn is slow because his father, the sun, when he rejected him as a child just after his birth, he kicked him in the leg. And that's why Saturn is a limping planet, and that's making him the slowest planet in the sky. So already just after birth, yet he was traumatized by his dad, the sun. And they are opposite principles. The sun is the king, the shining light, the one who wants to rule, who's also very hierarchical. And Saturn hates that. Saturn wants same treatment for everybody, irrespective of your rank. It's your deeds and your karma that decides about what's happening to you, not who you are. You can say Saturn is also the great democrat of the sky. He often has a bad reputation because he brings you the difficult karma that you have to live through. But it's not personal. It's your karma. So, I was talking about Saturn in Leo, the slow servant, the ascetic. He's the laborer who counts the years and bends his back. And Saturn in Leo is structurally the man who must wear the crown of the king, but he doesn't want to. The man who insists, while wielding absolute power, that he is just a humble worker. The man who claims he is just a chai Wallah in your service, at your service. But this is not personal modesty. Yeah, it's the literal expression in the chart structure of Saturn's discomfort with Leo. The soul never accepts the throne it must occupy, but it must occupy the throne. But it will not accept it. The compensation for that is a harder grip on the power than a natural Sun King or a natural Jupiter King would ever need. The chair of power is held tighter precisely because it is held without pleasure. And the second thing, Saturn is in Sandhi, 29 degrees, 40 minutes, the very end of Leo. Like his Mars in the first house, and like his ascendant himself, Saturn, the soul planet, is also in transition. He's powerful. By traditional measure, strength measure, Shatbala, it's actually the strongest planet in Modi's chart, 175%. But structurally, it's a fragile position. But Sandhi is not the whole story for this Saturn. Let's go one sign further. Let's add the 11th house here. The next house. The house he's transitioning into. Saturn sits at 29 degrees 40 minutes, right? And then in the next house already, there's the Sun, you see, SU. The Sun sits at 0 degree 36 minutes in the next sign of Virgo. And then Mercury just besides it, nearly the same degree, at 0 degree 48 minutes, basically fused. Also Virgo. And Mercury at Virgo is exalted. It's a sign of exaltation, and he's also his own sign. But he's retrograde. So this is a very complicated situation here. We have three planets, Saturn, the Sun, and Mercury, clustered inside roughly 70 minutes of arc. And that across the boundary between Leo and Virgo. All of three are in Sandhi, in the threshold degree, simultaneously. Two on the Virgo side of the cusp, and one on Saturn on the Leo side of the cusp. So this is a kind of triple Sandhi cluster in a sign boundary. This is very unusual. It's very unusual, and it's really worth naming it. So it's also not a planetary war, because by the traditional rules, the sun and the moon can never be part of a planetary war. So we're not looking at a planetary war here. And within this cluster, Saturn is only 0 degree 56 minute of arc away from the sun. Less than 1 degree. So he's combust. He's deeply combust. So the Atma Karaka, the soul planet in deep combustion, burned by his mortal enemy, the sun, who is also the lord of the very house he sits in. So he's already uncomfortable because the sun is the ruler of the placement he's sitting in. But then he's also very close, burned. Combustion in Vedic astrology, Ashta in Sanskrit, is the burning of a planet by proximity to the sun. The planet is in the king's fire and cannot operate fully. In Western astrology, there is a related rule. It's called Kazimi, when a planet is within 17 minutes of the sun. But in Western astrology, that's considered strengthening rather than weakening the planet. But Saturn here is at 56 minutes. It's beyond the Kazimi threshold, but in deep combustion. So even by Western standards, it's not a beneficial. It's a very hard placement. So his soul's planet is burned, not crowned. So if you read the configuration, the Atma Karaka in the threshold degree in Sandhi, in an enemy sign, deeply combust by the lord of that very enemy sign. The soul program is being burned by the king principle, in the king's principle's own house, while both stand at the threshold of transition. And the sun, the burning agent, is itself in threshold. So the king principle that destroys the Atma Karaka is itself wounded, itself in transition, itself unstable. There is no winner in this fire. The Atma Karaka is burned, and the burning agent is burning very unstably. But Saturn is not without support. There's something else happening here. If you add the 4th house, you see Jupiter. Jupiter is retrograde. He sits in the 4th house in Aquarius. And aspects the 10th house with his aspect, his Graha Trishti. And Saturn from the 10th house aspects Jupiter also by the Graha Trishti. So we have a mutual aspect here between Saturn and the soul's planet, the Atma Karaka, in the 10th, and Jupiter, who is for Modi the Pitri Karaka, the indicator of the ancestors, in the 4th house. Both are in a angular house, an action house, Kendra, and the configuration is strong. It's a strong signature for political eminence. So there is some relief coming from Jupiter, who is also the king of beneficial aspects, right? Read in the light of the combustion of Saturn, this aspect carries even more weight. Jupiter is the only planet in the whole chart maintaining classical dignity in relation to the burning Saturn. The teacher figure, the Dharma source, the substitute father, basically, looks across the chart at the immolated Atma Karaka. and is looked back at. That's a substitute lineage, which we will trace also in some divisional charts. This is the only stable point of structural support on Atma Karaka that is being burned by its own enemy sign lord. This is Modi's structural inheritance, the political Dharma he received by his political father and organization, mediated through father figures, locked in dialogue with the soul's chosen task of public action, is holding the configuration together against the central combustion. The substitute father lineage of the RSS is built into the chart as the structural counterweight to a soul program that is otherwise being destroyed by its own occupied sign. Part 6. The Apparatus. So, there is a cluster in the 11th house of the chart that I want to show you. Here you see the 11th house. We already looked at it in the last part. But I want to look more closely at it. So the 11th house is the house of gains, of profits, of networks, of large groups, of the masses, understood as an audience, and for a politician, the constituency. But also the house of achievements, fulfillments of desire. It's a positive house. In Modi's chart, it contains 3 planets. We already mentioned the Sun in Virgo at 0 degree 36 minutes, Mercury also in Virgo at 0 degree 48 minutes, so basically too close to the Sun, very close. A retrograde, but in its own sign, and it's a sign of exaltation, he's exalted. And Ketu, the South Node, in Virgo at 5 degree 14 minutes. And if I look at what I always call the numbers of power, the Sarva Ashtaka Varga, it's also the strongest house in Modi's whole chart. It has a Sarva Ashtaka Varga of 41. No other house comes close. 41 is very strong. It means basically automatic, that the blessing of Mahalakshmi is on this house. The next strongest house is at 37, also strong, but not in the same register. And we already mentioned in the last part, Sun and Mercury in conjunction in the same sign. That creates classically a Buddha Aditya Yoga, the configuration associated with high intelligence and royal patronage. And with Mercury exalted, this becomes a strengthened version of a Buddha Aditya Yoga. It's a very strong one, but the distance between them and the placements, they are both below 0 degree. That makes them in transition, in Sandhi. It's a difficult placement. It's weakening them, definitely. It means it's like a planet moving house. If they are 0 degree of a sign, it's like you move into a new house, but you haven't unpacked your furniture yet, so you're not ready for action. It's a transition phase. In Western astrology, and this is something I do rarely, I'm not schooled in Western astrology. I don't know much about it. But I was finding that information when I looked up this configuration. There is a rule called Kazimi, from the Arabic word Kazimi, which describes a planet within only 17 minutes of arc of the Sun. Kazimi is sometimes translated as in the heart of the Sun. So ordinarily in Jyôtish, combustion just burns a planet. It weakens its physical expression. It might enhance its spiritual expression. But in Western astrology, Kazimi is held to fuse it with the Sun's authority and to grant strength rather than diminish it. And Mercury at 12 minutes from the Sun is well inside Kazimi territory. The Vedic tradition treats this configuration with more ambivalence than Western tradition does. But at this distance, I feel like we can at one point let the doctrinal differences between the systems behind us. Because in both systems, what would be true is to say that functionally, this Mercury is fused with the sun. Mercury is not burning beside the king. He is speaking as the king. Mercury is fused to the sun. And this is structurally important. Mercury exalted in the 11th house gives a certain surface power. The proximity to the sun at that degree gives the inner mechanism. Mercury and sun, the messenger and the authority, the speech and the soul are collapsed into a single utterance. The man cannot speak as Mercury distinct from the sun. He speaks only as if he was the king. This is the Wallah who would be king. Because you remember where Saturn, the servant, sits, right? It's just besides them. And this explains a feature of the strength data that I would otherwise have to wave at vaguely, but Mercury in the chart is only at 129% of strength, the second weakest planet, despite being in its sign of exaltation. The exaltation should give this Mercury more strength than that, but Mercury in Sandhi, infused with the sun, cannot operate as an independent communication principle. The exaltation gives the messaging a surface refinement. The fusion ensures that the messaging never has any content separate from the king self. This is why the man's speech, however polished, however rehearsed, however precisely delivered, never seems to carry an idea independent of his own position. There is no Modi the thinker distinct from Modi the king, and the chart shows why it cannot exist. Mercury is also retrograde, and retrograde planets in classical Jyôtish are considered, depending on the context, either weakened or intensified, and a retrograde Mercury can also indicate a rather introverted person. In the case of Mercury here, exalted, retrograde, Sandhi, fused to the sun, in the 11th house. For me, I read this as an intensification loop. This is the supreme communicator who refines and refines, who loops back over his messaging until it acquires an uncanny precision. This is a man who edits the same sentence 40 times and delivers it the 41st time as if it had never been edited at all. This is rhetorical mastery in its purest form. But then there's also Ketu. Ketu in the 11th, ruled by the same Mercury that sits beside it. Ketu is the headless one, the cutting blade, the indicator of moksha, of severance. Ketu in the 11th, conjunct the sun, gives a very specific signature. The headless king. Charisma without the stable center. Performative authority. The leader as an empty space animated by an apparatus larger than himself. 3 planets in the 11th house, all in Virgo, all serving an extraordinary mass communication function. Sun, the natural ruler of authority, the karaka of the self. Mercury exalted, retrograde, and fused to the sun, looped, refined, and Ketu the cutting blade. Together, they describe an apparatus rather than a person. Mass communication, discipline, brand construction, political speech as a ritual. And the biographical correspondences are easy to enumerate. The pinstripe suit with his own name embroidered repeatedly through the fabric, worn during a state visit by President Obama in 2015. The cricket stadium in Ahmedabad, the largest cricket stadium in the world, renamed Narendra Modi Stadium in 2021. The campaign slogan Modi Ki Guarantee, Modi's Guarantee, deployed across the 2024 general election, the man himself as the brand, the party as a vessel for the brand, institutions as scenery for the brand. The use of holograms in 2014 and 2019 to address simultaneous rallies across the country. One man projected into many bodies, speaking the same speech in many places at once. The monthly radio program Man Ki Baat, Speaking from the Heart, in which the Prime Minister addresses the nation directly, bypassing intermediating institutions, speaking as if from the chair of the family elder, the modern Volksempfänger. The Twitter and Facebook and Instagram followers, the third or first largest of any world leader at various times, depending on the platform and the year. All of this is the 11th house cluster operating at full power. Mercury exalted, retrograde generates the messaging. The fusion with the sun ensures the messaging never separates from the king's self. Sun gives it the weight of personal authority. Ketu cuts away everything that does not serve the message. The apparatus refines, projects, multiplies, repeats. Take Modi out of the BJP and the RSS and the wider Hindutva ecosystem, and the magic disappears. The communication is not the trick. The communication is held by the structure that surrounds it. Mercury at only 129% strength, without the apparatus, is just a retrograde planet at the edge of a sign. With the apparatus, it becomes the loudest, sustained mass communication operation in modern Indian political history. Part 7. Ambition Larping as Dharma. Now I come to what I consider the central yoga of this chart. The single configuration that more than any other describes the political project of the man who carries this chart. The 5th house and the 4th house. I marked it here. The 5th house, the left one of the marked ones, contains Rahu, the north node of the moon, at 5 degrees 14 minutes in Pisces. Rahu in this chart is the Amatya Karaka, the second highest planet by degree. The Amatya Karaka indicates the soul's primary desire object, the thing the soul most wants to consume in this incarnation, but it's also classically called the minister of the soul. So he's basically helping the Atma Karaka, Saturn in this case, as we discussed earlier, like a minister of the soul. Rahu itself, in classical terms, is the planet of obsession, of foreign elements, of disruptors, of consumers, of the insatiable. Rahu in Pisces in the 5th house gives a very specific signature. The 5th house is the house of creativity, of children, but also of politics. Pisces is the most receptive, dissolving, mystical sign of the zodiac. The natural 12th house of the zodiac, right? Pisces, the last of the zodiac signs, and it is ruled by Jupiter. Rahu in Pisces is obsessed with the dissolved into the divine, obsessed with becoming the figure who carries spiritual weight. And Rahu in the 5th is also obsessed with leadership, with mantra, with the power to address and command large groups, with mass devotion. So far this is straightforward. The soul's primary desire and the soul's minister is for spiritual political power, for mass leadership, for messianic positioning. It pretty much fits the picture, right? But now the 4th house. The 4th house, the house before the 5th, right, contains Jupiter, retrograde, at 6 degrees 36 minutes of Aquarius. Now, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, but its co-ruler is Rahu. So the configuration we have is Jupiter sits in Rahu's sign, and Rahu sits in Jupiter's sign. Each occupies the other's territory. Each takes on the other's qualities. This is a Parivartana Yoga, mutual exchange. Both planets occupy both houses simultaneously. It always reminds me of quantum physics, where in certain states particles can be in two places at the same time. In Jyôtish, especially after the age of the majority of a planet, this mutual exchange usually kicks in. For Jupiter, the age of maturity is very early, it's 16 years. But for Rahu, it's 42 years. So, at least from his 42nd birthday onwards, which is September 1992, this mutual exchange is fully activated. And coincidentally, this was the period in Modi's life where he had joined the BJP political party and proved his capabilities to organize elections and was moving up the ranks in the party until in 1998 he became its general secretary for organization. By the time this mutual exchange kicks in, his career in the party takes off. Let's go deeper into what this exchange describes. Rahu is the foreigner, the disruptor, the obsessive consumer of power. He sits in Pisces, the sign of dissolved spiritual surrender, ruled by Jupiter, the great teacher of Dharma. And Jupiter, the karaka of Dharma and wisdom, of traditional teachings, of the priestly Brahmanic function, sits in Aquarius, the sign of the modern collective, of the technocratic mass, retrograde, looking backward. Rahu wears Jupiter's robes, and Jupiter sits in Rahu's territory. This is the astrological signature of ambition wearing the robes of ancient Dharma, while ancient Dharma gets bent backwards to serve political ambition. This is pretty exact what's happening right now. Hindutva does not reform Hinduism. Hindutva refashions a political ideology in Hinduism's clothing, while refashioning Hinduism in its political image. And the chart shows this exchange operating at the level of the soul's deepest desires. Jupiter retrograde gives an additional layer. Retrograde planets in Jyôtish are sometimes interpreted as planets that look back, that reverse direction, that operate against the natural current. Jupiter retrograde is the teacher who insists on a tradition that never quite existed in the form he claims. The teacher who looks back at an imagined past and calls it the eternal way. Sanatana Dharma, as he describes it, is not the eternal way. It is the eternal way as Rahu has imagined it, while Jupiter sits backward in Rahu's sign and signs off on that description. It's an invented tradition. This is what I mean when I say that the project of Hindutva, as a religious and political claim, is ambition larping as Dharma. There is no further note to be made here. Jupiter is in a friend sign because Aquarius belongs also to Saturn and they're kind of okay with each other. So he's okay there normally. And he has a good strength at 157%. He's actually the third strongest planet in the chart. So the dharmic capacity is real. It is intact. It is even potent. The tragedy is what it is bent towards. The wisdom is genuine. What it gets used for is not. And this is the structural tragedy of Narendra Modi's chart. He carries genuine teaching capacity, genuine dharmic potential. The Jupiter is real, but he sits in exchange with Rahu, and Rahu is in the driver's seat. The Dharma is conscripted. The teacher serves the obsession. If you ever wondered how a man with apparent personal asceticism, apparent personal discipline, apparent personal religiosity, and preside over communal violence and not flinch. This is the structural answer. The asceticism is real, the religiosity is real, but they are bent. They are not absent, they are conscripted. Part 8. The Father Without Children. In Jyôtish, the natal chart is not a single chart. It is the first of many charts, each of which refines a different aspect of the soul's incarnational program. The first chart, the Rashi, gives the body and the broad outline. If a human life was a skyscraper, where each floor was reserved for different aspects of life, the D1 or Rashi chart would be the blueprint of the whole building. And the deeper charts, called Vargas or Amshas, they refine specific themes. In that skyscraper example, they would each detail one specific floor of the building, and each floor has a specific purpose. Now, the seventh Varga, the Saptamsha, is the chart of children and lineage. It shows that what continues. It shows that what flows out from the body into the next generation. And Narendra Modi's Saptamsha is quite striking. Let's have a look. That's his D7. The fifth house to the bottom left, the house of children, is empty. No planet in there. And the Lord of the fifth house, Mercury, is on the top right in the 11th house of the Saptamsha. Mercury in the 11th of the D7 is here in that case in Pisces. And Pisces is the sign of Mercury's debilitation. Mercury in the D7 chart is also retrograde. The Lord of Children is in deep dignity loss, retrograde, sitting outside the children's house in the Gains house. And besides him in the 11th house is Jupiter, the natural karaka, the natural indicator of children in classical Jyôtish. The cosmic father principle that normally signals progeny is also in the 11th house of the Saptamsha, also retrograde. So the natural creative paternal force is not flowing towards biological progeny. It is looped backward, projected outwards. 11th house groups masses, right? And the sun is also in the 11th house of the Saptamsha, again, like in the D1, right? The king self in the Gains house with the wounded children lord and the retrograde children indicator. Then, if we add the 12th house here on top, you have Ketu, the cutting blade, in the 12th house of the Saptamsha. The severance of lineage placed in the house of losses, of foreign places, of moksha. And we can go further. We can add house 1, right? If we add house 1, we see again Mars sitting in the ascendant of the Saptamsha in Taurus. The action self, the warrior, in Venus territory. Read together, this configuration, for me, says one thing very clearly. The lineage energy, the children energy, has been displaced. It is not flowing into the 5th house where it belongs. The 5th house is empty, the Lord of the 5th is crippled and has been moved to the 11th. The natural karaka of children, Jupiter, has also been moved to the 11th. The cutting plate is in the 12th, ensuring severance from anything direct. This chart shows, in absolute structural form, that this man would not have biological children. Modi has never had biological children. His marriage was never consummated. His wife of more than 50 years has lived alone, probably in poverty, I don't know, supported intermittently by relatives, never publicly acknowledged. The chart shows where the children energy went instead. It went to the 11th house. It went to networks, to the masses, to large groups, gains, audiences. It went to the imagined community of the nation, to his mirror version of Bharat Mata, Mother India. The man with no biological children claims to be the father of the nation. The structural displacement is exact. The lineage that did not flow into the 5th house was rerouted into the 11th. The biological children he did not have are replaced structurally by the masses he addresses through Man Ki Baat and Modi Ki Guarantee and the holograms and the stadium named after him. This is not pathological in itself. There are many religious traditions in which celibacy is honored and in which spiritual paternity is real. The Catholic Church works this way. So does much of Buddhism. Obviously, in Hinduism, it's also a concept that is well known and practiced. And the RSS Pracharak system itself comes with a vow of celibacy, which Modi entered formally in 1971, and which he has never officially renounced. What this chart shows, though, is not the celibacy in itself. It is the displacement mechanism. The chart shows that the celibacy was never going to produce nothing. It was going to produce political children, mass children, ideological children. It was going to produce a Hindu Rashtra as imagined family. This is what I call the displacement of kinship. Part 9. Bharat Mata, Mother India, a performance. Now, let's move to another Varga, another floor of the skyscraper, this time the 14th Varga, the Kavedamsha, the D40. It is used as the Madrigana chart. It shows the maternal line, the bond to the motherland, the lived relationship, also to the feminine collective. This chart is for a man whose entire political project is built on the rhetoric of Bharat Mata, Mother India, quite devastating. I have highlighted the 12th house here. The sun in the D40 is in the 12th house in Libra, where the sun is debilitated. And the 12th house, additionally, in Jyôtish is called MKS, Marana Karakashtana, for the sun. It's the position the sun goes to die. It's its maximum weakness. So we have the king principle, the sole authority, debilitated and in its position of natural decay in the chart that governs the bond to the feminine, but also to the motherland, to his maternal ancestors. Then, very important in the D40, is the 4th house. It's empty. The 4th house in the Matriganaga chart is the mother house in the chart of the mother. There is no direct planetary occupancy. The mother figure in the lineage chart of the mother is structurally underexpressed. And it's Aquarius, so it has two lords, the Atma Karaka Saturn and the Amatya Karaka Rahu. Let's go to Saturn in the 9th house. The 9th house is Cancer, and it's an enemy sign for Saturn. He's not really happy there. The Dharma transmission through the matrilineal lineage is weakened. The Dharma he claims he received from Mother India is not coming through the Matrigana channel. The chart shows that this channel is rather wounded. Let's go to the 11th house. We have here the moon, the natural indicator, the natural karaka of the mother. In the 11th house, in Virgo. Again, the 11th house. The mother energy is displaced into the gains house and the house of mass communication, audiences, groups, society. Virgo is methodical, analytical, work-oriented, transactional. The moon in Virgo in the 11th house of the Matrigana chart is the mother bonded to the masses through utility, not through warmth. Read together, the king is debilitated and decaying in the losses house. The mother house is empty, the Dharma lineage through mother is weakened, the mother feeling is operational, calculating, methodical, pointed at the 11th house of the masses. This is the chart of a man whose Bharat Mata devotion, its performance, not embodiment. He does not love the mother, he uses the mother. The mother figure is an instrument. There is one feature in the Kavidamsha that is worth noting. The ascendant, the Lagna, is also Scorpio, same as in his principal D1 chart. And Mars is in the first house, year 2, Swastika. This is basically a form of Vargotama Lagna. The Lagna repeated across 2 Vargas, and he carries the motherland bond karma in the same Scorpio register as his core identity. The matrilineal intensity is not separate from his political intensity. They are the same thing. The Scorpio quality of his identity, secrecy, intensity, the will to dominate, transformation through power, runs all the way through into how he relates to the motherland. He does not approach Mother India with devotion. He approaches her the way Scorpio approaches everything, as territory to be transformed, secrets to be uncovered or covered, power to be consolidated. So the Matrigana chart is the second structural confirmation after the D7 that the kinship he claims is constructed rather than embodied. He has no biological children, and the chart shows the children energy displays to the masses. He claims a matrilineal bond to Bharat Mata, and the chart shows the maternal energy debilitated, decaying, underexpressed, replaced by transactional Virgo utility. This man performs kinship that he does not carry. Part 10. The Wounded Learning. There has been a long-running controversy in Indian political life about the authenticity of Modi's academic credentials. He claims a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Delhi, completed in 1978 by distance learning, and a Master of Arts from Gujarat University, completed in 1983, also by distance learning. Both degrees, when scrutinized, have presented anomalies. A former professor at Gujarat University has stated that the subjects listed in Modi's MA degree were not offered at the university during the period when he supposedly studied them. The University of Delhi has produced a degree under its registrar's signature confirming authenticity, but a right to information request earlier confirmed that the college had no records of students passing out in 1978. I'm not making any claim about whether the degrees are real or fabricated. I don't care. The matter is contested, you can read it. The records are partial. I do not need to enter that argument. What I can show you is what the chart of his education says. I'm a Jyôtishi, not a politician. And to look at the education, we go to the 24th Varga, the Chatur Vimshamsha. It's the chart of education, of formal learning, of the structures through which knowledge is transmitted. Now, let's look at that chart. D24. Now, in his D24, let's look at that Jupiter here in house 6. His Jupiter sits in the 6th house, and I've changed the colors so you can see it now better, right? He sits in the 6th house in Capricorn. Capricorn is the sign of Jupiter's debilitation, plus he's retrograde. Jupiter is the natural indicator, the natural karaka of teachers, of wisdom, of traditional learning. He's debilitated and retrograde in the 6th house of the education chart. And that indicates that the wisdom source in his learning is structurally wounded. The teacher figure in the formal education chart is in deep dignity loss in the conflict house number 6. Now let's look at the 12th house. Oh, again, the color is off. So the 12th house to the top right. Yeah, you can't see it properly. Ah, well, you can see it now. The 12th house with the many planets. I leave it like that. Mars, Mercury, Sun, Saturn. Cancer, right? 4 planets. Mars debilitated in Cancer. Mercury retrograde. Sun, Saturn. 4 planets concentrated in the 12th house of the education chart. The 12th house is the house of losses, of foreign places, of hidden things, of dissolution. Mars debilitated in this 12th house is action toward learning. His discipline, self-application is wounded. The Sun in the 12th is in MKS, Marana Karakastana, his natural position of decay. The king's claim to knowledge is structurally compromised. Saturn here, the natural ruler of structure and discipline, kind of lost in the 12th, in Cancer, doesn't like Cancer. Mercury here, the natural ruler of intellect, retrograde, looped, lost. This configuration says one thing very clearly: his education is structurally performative, not substantive. The teacher figure is debilitated. 4 planets, including the Sun in MKS, are concentrated in the lost house. One of them is debilitated. This is a chart of a man whose learning is built on appearance and absence rather than on durable acquisition. Whether the specific degrees on his Wikipedia page are real or partially real or invented, I cannot tell you. The chart cannot tell you. What the chart can tell you is that the energy of formal learning in this man's chart is structurally weak in a way that makes durable scholarly accomplishment very unlikely. Make of that what you will. Part 11, the substitute lineage. Now, there is the 12th Varga, the Dvadashamsha. It's the chart of parents, of ancestral lineage. It shows what comes through the bloodline. Modi's D12 contains another Vargotama Lagna, Scorpio rising again, and again Mars sitting in the first house in its own sign in Scorpio. But here, besides Mars, in the first house of his D12 sits Ketu, the cutting blade, the headless one, the karaka of moksha and severance. This is the 3rd Varga in which we see Vargotama Lagna of Scorpio. The D1, the D40, the maternal lineage, right, and now the D12. The pattern actually repeats in many more Vargas. I don't show you all of them, but it's the core pattern. It's the key signature of Modi's incarnation, Scorpio Lagna with Mars and Scorpio in house 1. And here, in the D12, the chart of ancestry, Modi also is Scorpio with Mars at the structural soul pattern level. The intensity, the secrecy, the will to dominate, the transformation through power runs through his core identity, his courage and his ancestry. This is not a single feature of one chart. This is a structural soul pattern at multiple levels of refinement. He does not put on Scorpio, he is Scorpio. Mars in Scorpio. Mars and Ketu on the ascendant of the D12 chart gives the warrior ascetic ancestral pattern, the soldier monk as inherited type, the celibate political warrior vowed to the cause rather than to family. This is precisely the RSS Pracharak template. The chart shows him preloaded for that lineage. Now let's look at some other houses of the D12. Let's look at house 9 here. Saturn sits in the 9th house in Cancer again, an enemy sign for Saturn. The 9th house in the D12 is the paternal Dharma line, the line of Dharma transmission through the father. Saturn weakened in this house tells us that the blood father lineage is not the source of his Dharma. The father, Damodaras Mulchan Modi, the chai Wallah, the tea stall vendor, is structurally not the channel. Let's look at house 6. Jupiter sits in the 6th house of the D12 in Aries retrograde. Jupiter is the karaka of teachers of Dharma. The 6th house is the house of struggle, conflict, opposition. Jupiter retrograde in the 6th is the dharmic teaching that comes through struggle, through opposition, through conflict, through the Shaka system, through the RSS Pracharak training, through Inamdar. The chart shows the substitute father lineage with surgical clarity. The blood father is weak in the Dharma line. The actual Dharma teacher is the figure who emerges through conflict in the 6th house, the substitute, the trainer, the mentor. Inamdar, Golbalkar, through the texts. The Shaka, the Pracharagvao. Modi's relationship to Dharma did not come from his father, it came from the man who took him into their order when he was only 8 years old. Let's look at the 7th house. Rahu in the 7th house of the D12 in Taurus, one of the signs of exaltation. The obsessive, foreign, disruptive principle is encoded in the lineage at exalted strength. The obsession with mass political, spiritual power is ancestral. He did not invent it, he inherited it. The 11th house. Sun and Mercury retrograde in the 11th house of the D12 in Virgo. The same configuration as in the Rashi chart, the D1. The mass communication apparatus is also ancestral. He did not build it from scratch. He came in with it, ready to be deployed. Across the Rashi of the Dvadashamsha, 3 things repeat. The Scorpio Lagna, Mars in its own sign in house 1, Sun Mercury cluster in the 11th. These are not constructed identifications. They are structural inheritances. He came pre-equipped for the role he's now playing. Part 12. The Karmic Summation. Now we take a long stretch. This is a gamble. I'm going to show you the D60, the 60th Varga, Shashti Amsha. It is the deepest divisional chart in the classical Jyôtish system that I use. The Karma Summation. It's the chart of the past life and the karma you bring into this life. Some Jyotishi give it more weight than the main chart, the D1 itself. But with the birth data only being DD level, this chart is of course highly speculative. Here the ascendant can shift within 30 seconds of birth time. You will need the exact minute to have a good chart here. We don't have that. I will read it with caveats. So what you're about to see in this chapter is suggestive, not definitive. Without the exact birth minute, this chart is not reliable. But still, let's have some fun. So, the Lagna, the ascendant of his D60, is Capricorn. And Rahu sits here in the Lagna of the Karma Summation chart. The defining karmic identity wound is Rahu obsession. The soul comes into incarnation already burning with ambition. There is no pre-Rahu version of the soul to recover. Let's look at house 10 of the active karma, the career. The sun sits in the 10th house in Libra, debilitated. This is a loaded placement. Across the karma summation, the sun authority principle is wounded in the karma house itself. The soul comes into this incarnation with a damaged relationship to authority. Authority is sought and achieved and held, but never quite owned at a soul level, never quite enjoyed. House 7. Here again Saturn in Cancer. In his enemy sign, and here with Ketu. Saturn is weakened in the partnership house with Ketu. It means damaged partnership karma at the deepest possible level. Across lifetimes, the soul has unresolved business with consorts, with partners, with equals. The pattern for his wife, Jashodaben, is not a one-time event in this lifetime. It is a karmic groove worn deep. Let's look at the 12th house. Here we find Mars in the 12th house in Sagittarius. The action self, the Lagna Lord of the D1, the main chart, in the losses house of the karma chart, in Sagittarian Dharmic territory. The warrior who fights claiming Dharma, but pays a hidden price for the claim. This rhymes precisely with the Rahu-Jupiter exchange in the main chart. The karmic price of ambition, Larping as Dharma, is sitting in the 12th house of the karma chart. There is one placement that could have been bright. Because retrograde Jupiter, in his own sign of Pisces, in the 3rd house, conjunct Venus, who would normally be debilitated in Pisces. Sorry. She's exalted in Pisces. Kind of losing it here. The 3rd house is the house of self-effort, of will, of personal initiative. So a very strong Venus, and normally a strong Jupiter. He's in his own sign with Venus, but that would say that genuine dharmic capacity is possible and preserved at the soul level. That the teaching is real. But. The 3rd house, our old friend MKS comes again. Jupiter's MKS position is the 3rd house. So even here, the teacher principle is like a man who has fallen into the depth of a pit. Even here, the one light that could have been a saving grace is darkened. The tragedy is what it gets used for. The man carries wisdom, even at the soul level, but inaccessible across the karma summation. And then it gets bent through the Rahu-Jupiter exchange in the main chart, bent through the constructed kinship of the Bharat Mata performance, bent through the displacement of the children energy to the 11th house masses into the project we now know as Hindutva. The wisdom is kind of real, but it has been conscripted for something that is not real. So, across all of these Vargas, one pattern repeats with remarkable consistency. The sun, the natural significator of authority, of the king, of soul as ruler, is consistently weakened. In the main chart, it is 0 degree 36 minutes in Virgo in Sandhi burning the Atma Karakas Saturn, while itself standing at the threshold of transition. In the Navamsha, the D9 that I have not shown here, it is actually in Capricorn, in the 7th house, in enemy territory. In the D24, it's in Cancer, in the 12th house, in MKS. In the D40, it is in Libra, debilitated, in the 12th house, MKS. In the D60, it is in Libra, debilitated, in the 10th house. So the king self, the natural authority principle, is structurally wounded across every refinement of his chart. And yet he wields massive political authority. The authority, therefore, is constructed rather than innate. It is built through Mars aggression, and Mercury communication fused to the king self. in Kazini, and Saturn grinding work even as the Atma Karaka is burned, and Rahu obsessive ambition, while the actual sun-thrown self stays wounded across every chart. This is the deepest astrological and I might say psychological signature of what Narendra Modi is. Not a king, a despot. Part 13. Denethor. There is a figure in modern literature who fits the chart we have just read with uncanny precision. In Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, the city of Minas Tirith is ruled by a steward, not a king. The steward governs in the absence of the rightful king by ancient compact until the king should return. The steward's authority is real but conditional. It is held in trust. It is held against the day of return. By the time of the events of the third book, the Steward of Gondor is named as Denethor. Denethor was once wise. The text is clear about this. He read deeply. He understood the politics of his age. He served his city for many years with skill and gravity. But he came into possession of one of the Parantiri, the seeing stones, with which he could look into the affairs of the wider world. The Parantiri showed truth. They did not lie, but they could be controlled. And Sauron, the Dark Lord, whose stone Denethor was secretly aligned with, did not show Denethor lies. Sauron showed Denethor only the truth he wanted Denethor to see. The vast armies, the certain doom, the hopelessness of resistance. Denethor, looking through the stone, saw a world filled with enemies. He saw his city encircled. He saw his own sons inadequate to the task. He saw despair as the only honest response. The stone did not corrupt his vision by lying. The stone corrupted his vision by selecting. And Denethor increasingly behaved as a king. He gave orders that exceeded his charter. He treated his sons unequally, mourning the dead one and undermining the living one. He withheld from the rightful king, when he came at last, any acknowledgement of the return. He set himself finally on a pyre on the tomb of the kings and tried to take his living son with him into the fire. This is, with quite surgical precision, I feel, a literary parallel for the chart that we have just read. The sun, Saturn is Atma Karaka in the 10th house of Leo, deeply combust by the sun at 56 minutes, in Sandhi, in enemy sign. The steward who acts as king, the sole program of public action set in the sign that does not belong to it, burned by the king principle of that sign, while both stand at the threshold of transition. The crown worn against the chair's discomfort, the chair held again against the burning. The Rahu-Jupiter exchange in the D1 chart. The Palantir, the stone of selective truth. The vision that sees only what it has been trained to see and calls that vision Dharma. Hindutva as television, Hindutva as Twitter feed, Hindutva as WhatsApp uncle. The stones in everyone's pocket showing only the truth the apparatus wants shown. The infiltrators, the love jihad, the civilizational siege, the encirclement. The selective mourning. Denethor mourns the heroic dead son and undermines the living one. Modi mourns the Hindu pilgrims who died in that train at Gotra. He does not mourn the 2,000 Muslim dead who followed in the Gujarat violence. He mourns the 1,200 Israelis killed on October 7th. He does not mourn the 70,000 Palestinians who followed. The mourning is selective. The mourning is the tell. the pyre as a performance. Denethor's death is a stage. He sets himself on the tomb of the kings. He performs the death of a king he was not. Modi's whole political project is performance on the tomb of a civilization. Sanatana Dharma, as he describes it, is not the eternal way. It is the eternal way as the Palantir has shown it, performed on the burning ground of an India that no longer exists, that never existed in the form he claims. And Denethor cannot relinquish. He cannot acknowledge the rightful king. He cannot release the chair. He chooses fire over surrender. Across 3 terms as prime minister, with diminishing electoral mandates, with increasing opposition, with the documented democratic backsliding tracked by every major institution that tracks such things, Modi has not relinquished, he has not modulated, he has not yielded ground. He has, like Denethor, set himself increasingly on the pyre of kings. Lord Denethor, mad steward, who gave orders that were not his to give, who ruled a city not his own, who saw the world only through the stone he had been given, who chose fire over the rightful king. The chart we have read is the chart of the same archetype, born again in Vatnagar in 1950 into a body that the political machinery of the 20th century would deliver to the seat in 2014. The steward who acts as king is the structural pattern of the soul. The chart says it, the man performs it, Tolkien named it, we watch. Part 16. The Moon. In the Henchmen Gallery, I assign each figure a tarot card. In the major arcana, this is 1 figure to 1 card. The cards are archetypes. The figures are the latest incarnation of an archetypal pattern. Modi, in this gallery, is card number 18, the Moon. Look at the card. A moon hangs in the night sky, half-shadowed, dropping yards of dew onto the earth below. 2 beasts stand on the ground howling at it. A dog and a wolf. The dog domesticated, the wolf feral. Between them runs a path that disappears between 2 towers and into mountains beyond. And in the foreground, at the edge of a pool of dark water, a crayfish, a crab, emerges from the depth. This card paints Modi's ascendant pretty well, I find. The moon in the sky of the card is his debilitated moon on the ascendant, in Scorpio, in the 1st house, the natural seat of empathy in its weakest position, hanging over the chart. The 2 beasts howling are Mars animals. Mars is conjunct that moon in the Lagna. The wolf is feral, the dog is domesticated, the wild and the tamed, both vocal beneath the same wounded moon. The water under the beast is Scorpio. Scorpio is a water sign. The ascendant is in Scorpio. The whole chart begins underwater. The crab emerging from the pool is the Navamsha Pada of his ascendant. Vishaka Pada 4 falls into the Navamsha of Cancer. Cancer is the crab sign. The deepest emotional foundation of this chart is Cancer. The crab is what is climbing out of the water beneath the beasts. The crab is what is rising. The card visualizes his 1st house with surgical accuracy. The moon, the beasts of Mars, the Scorpio water, the Cancer crab. Everything that is happening in his ascendant is happening on this card. And now read what the card means. Read it without the chart, just as a card. The moon in the tarot tradition is the card of illusion, of deception, of the unconscious gaining power over the conscious, of fears, anxieties, and the primitive consciousness rising, of things half seen, things distorted, things that look like one thing in the dim light and turn out to be another in the morning. Of the path through unknown territory, of madness held just barely at bay, of the tides, the cycles, the ebb and flow of mass psychology, of primal mass emotion mobilized. The card is sinister. There is no joy in the card. There is no playfulness. There is no warmth. The light is dim, indirect, distorted. The path leads into mountains we cannot see beyond. The beasts howl at something they cannot reach. The waters are deep, and the surface tells you nothing of what swims below. This is the atmospheric register of the man whose chart we have read. Modi's public face is grim. The white kurta austerity, no smile, the pinstripe suit was rare flesh and immediately controversial precisely because it broke the established aesthetics. The man's affective register is night, water, dread, gravity. The moon card carries that. The card is what the man feels like. Now read what the card means as a political mechanism. Other politicians construct brands. Berlusconi constructed a brand. Trump constructs brands. Brand construction is the technique. The moon card is not the technique. The moon card is the terrain on which the technique operates. But Modi specifically does what makes him different from other authoritarian populists of his generation, is to mobilize mass primal fear at the level of national unconscious. The love jihad as fear, infiltrators as fear, civilizational siege as fear, Gar-Wapsi as fear management. The whole Hindutva apparatus operates through unconscious mass psychology, not through clever advertising. That is the moon's territory exactly, the dim light beneath which the dog and the wolf both howl, the water from which the crab emerges, the path between two towers we cannot quite see. The two beasts on the card give us political mapping. The wolf is feral, the dog is domesticated. They are not opposed, they are the same nature in two registers, both vocal beneath the same moon. The street-level RSS, the cow vigilantes, the lynch mobs, the WhatsApp uncle networks, the Bajrang Dal and the wilder VHP elements, the wolf. The parliamentary BJP, the polished apparatus, the diplomatic Modi at the Knesset, the photo-op administrator, the dog. Both howl at the same moon. The same imagined Bharat Mata, the same civilizational fever dream, the same wounded moon in the Lagna projected outward as Mother India. Most analyses of Modi separate the institutional Modi from the movement Modi, as if they were two different operations. The card says no. They are two beasts howling at one moon. He is the moon they both serve. He does not choose between them. He is the figure that organizes both registers around a single emotional center. The two towers in the card, between which the path runs, give us another political mapping. The towers are often read as the duality through which one must pass in life. Religious authority and political authority, Sangh and parliament, the pillars between which Modi has walked his career. Hindu civilization and Muslim civilization, the iron alliance with Israel, framed as ancient civilizations addressing one another. The ancient pillars of an imagined civilizational geography between which his path supposedly leads. Past and future, Vedic claims and Hindu Rashtra ambitions. The pillars of memory and destiny that bracket every Hindutva speech. He walks the path between, and he walks it under the moon in dim light, primal beasts on either side. The crab emerging from the pool is what Hindutva mobilizes politically. The primitive consciousness rising, the ancient grievance resurrected, the wounded mass feeling clambering out of the unconscious. The Vishaka Padafor Lagna in Cancer Navamsha is structurally exactly that. The warrior nakshatra grounded in the crab sign. He fights from a position of primal emotional foundation. The crab is what surfaces. And the position of the card in the major arcana sequence carries weight also. Number 18, late in the sequence. The moon is the card just before the sun. It is in the deep unconscious territory of the fool's journey, after the star, but before the dawn. The moon is what one passes through in the dark before the morning. Modi positioned at 18 rather than at the start of the deck says something accurate. He is not the beginning of a journey. He is in the dim depth where illusions hold sway and primal fears govern. Hindutva is not a young political movement opening doors into a brighter future. It is an old, dim, deeply unconscious project that has waited and now operates in the dark, in the night, before the sun. The card is the moon. The card is what it is. And the man is what he is. The moon, number 18, Modi. Part 15, Tel Aviv, February 2026. Now let us go back where we began. The Knesset, late February of 2026. The visit happened during a specific astrological window. By Vimshottari dasha, the planetary timing of his life, Modi entered his great period of Mars, the Mars Mahadasha, in November 2021. The Mahadasha runs until November 2028. The Bhukti, the sub-period, was Mars-Mercury, which began in May 2025 and runs until 17th of May this year, 2026, just when I'm publishing this. Mars is the ascended Lord, the Lord of his body, in his own sign in the first house, in Sandhi. Mercury is exalted retrograde in the 11th house, fused to the sun with Ketu beside. The supreme communicator collapsed into the king voice with the cutting blade beside him. The Mars-Mercury Bhukti gives a precise signature. Aggressive intellectual political maneuverings, message discipline weaponized, civilizational rhetoric refined to a sharp edge. The second major planetary timing system, the Narayana dasha, gives an even more pointed timing. His Aries dasha began in September 2021 with an Aries, the Antara dasha that ends on May 19th, 2026 was Aries. So Aries Antardasha with Aries Mahadasha, the most martial, aggressive, combative sub-period within the Mars timing, the Aries timing. Aries is the 6th house from his Scorpio Lagna. The 6th house is the house of enemies, of conflict, of oppositional consolidation. He flew to Tel Aviv during the peak of an enemy's house activation to publicly bond with another political figure with a clear, aggressive death function during a documented genocide. The Iron Alliance against extremist Islam, in Netanyahu's phrase. The civilizational siblings in both man's mutual self-description. The shared rhetorical frame of two ancient peoples surrounded by Muslim enemies. This is not a side rhetoric. It is the cleanest possible verbal expression of his current planetary timing. Mars, Mercury, and Aries together produce aggressive ideological consolidation against an enemy-coded other. He showed up in Tel Aviv on stage with Netanyahu calling him brother. 27 memoranda were signed, a free trade agreement was announced, a critical and emerging technology partnership was established, a medal was awarded at the Knesset for his significant contributions to the state of Israel and the Jewish people. In his speech to the Knesset, he said the words, I quote in full because they matter. India stands with Israel firmly, with full conviction in this moment and beyond. He did not name the 70,000 slaughtered Palestinians. He did not name them in Hebrew, he did not name them in English, he did not name them in any language. He named Hamas, he named October 7th, he named the brutality of the attack. These were real and worth naming. He did not name the death that came afterwards. The moon, the selective truth, the palantir, the dim light, in which only some things are visible. This is what a Vedic chart looks like in operation. The personal friendship between Modi and Netanyahu has been remarked upon. by both governments has a powerful influence on the relationship between the two countries. They embrace at airports, they share meals, their wives know each other, there is, by all evidence, a genuine warmth between the two men. In the Henchmen Gallery, this is volume 6. The zeroth was Donald Trump, the fool, retroactively assigned. The first was Benjamin Netanyahu, the figure I called Death, after Paul Celan's line that Death is a master from Germany, applied here as Death is a master from Tel Aviv. The second was Vladimir Putin, the Emperor. The third was Viktor Orban, Seven of Swords. The fourth was Jeffrey Epstein, the Devil. The fifth was Tony Blair, the Hierophant, the false institutional priest of consultancy for authoritarian regimes. This is the sixth, and the gallery is increasingly a gallery of acquaintances. The figures recognize each other. They embrace at airports. Their wives know each other. The henchmen, in this sense, are not isolated figures. They are an emerging mutual recognition society. Modi and Netanyahu speaking to each other in February 26 are speaking the shared rhetorical apparatus that travels between the cards. Civilizational kinship, imagined community, manufactured siblinghood, the shared enemy who serves as the glue, invented traditions. The moon card visits the death card. Both perform an iron alliance. Both edit out the bodies. The chart of one and the chart of the other operate the same engine. We have read the engine. We know what it is. We see you. Part 16. What comes next? As I'm recording this, the Mars-Mercury Bhukti will end shortly for Modi. On May 17th, 2026, his dasha shifts to Mars Ketu. And in the Narayana system, on May 19th, the Antardasha shifts from Aries Aries to Aries Pisces. Both transitions are significant. Mars Ketu is the sudden rupture, exposure event, sharp cutting Bhukti. Ketu is the headless one. Ketu cuts, Ketu severs, Ketu reveals what was hidden, often violently. And Aries Pisces activates the Pisces house in his Narayana. Pisces is the fifth house from his Scorpio Lagna. Pisces contains Rahu, his Amatya Karaka, his deepest desire object. The Rahu-Jupiter exchange we discussed at length earlier, structurally activated during this period. His deepest desires take primary expression. The mystical political mass leadership themes park. From 17th May to 13th of October 2026, Mars, Ketu, and Aries Pisces operate together. This is a period in which the chart's most defining configurations are simultaneously activated. The cutting blade and the obsessive desire and the Dharma Larping ambition and the warrior ascetic karma all run at once. After the 13th of October 2026, the Vimshottari shifts to Mars-Venus, running until December 2027. Venus is the Bharat Karaka, the weakest planet in the chart, sitting with the Atma Karaka Saturn in the 10th house. Mars-Venus activates political alliances, marriages of convenience, deals, partnerships, while running through the chart's weakest planet. This is an unstable period for coalition arithmetic. Then the Mars Mahadasha closes in November 2028. Modi will be 78 years old. And then, on the 18th of November 2028, his Rahu Mahadasha will begin. That will last 18 years. 18 years of Rahu. Rahu is Amatya Karaka. Rahu in Pisces in the 5th house, in mutual exchange with Jupiter retrograde in the 4th. The defining karmic obsession of this chart, activated as the primary dasha for almost 2 decades. In one register, this period is the consolidation of the Messianic political identity, the flowering of the Hindutva project at its most expansive, the masses worshipping the figure who has become indistinguishable from the imagined community. In another register, Rahu Mahadasha is the period when buried karma surfaces. The 5th house is the 8th house from his Atma Karaka Saturn. It could be the planetary period where his incarnation ends. Rahu obscures, But Rahul also exposes. 18 years is long enough for the apparatus to crack, long enough for what the moon has been hiding to come into view, long enough for the bodies to be counted by historians who do not work for the apparatus. I will not predict which register dominates. The chart shows both possibilities. The structural signature is clear, the outcome is not. If you are watching this from a future I cannot see, you may already know. Part 17. Closing. I have offered you in this episode a reading of one chart, the chart of a man who is, by every available measure, the most consequential political figure in modern Indian history. A man who carries the structural soul pattern of a steward playing to be a king. A man whose primary kinship bonds, biological children, motherland, partnership, are structurally constructed rather than embodied. A man whose dharmic capacity is genuine, has been bent through Rahu-Jupiter exchange into the project of ambition, Larping, and Dharma. I have not told you what you should think about him. I have read what the chart says. Some of what I've described you will agree with from your own reading of the events. Some of you will reject it. Some of you will be uncertain about it. The work is the work, the chart speaks. The viewer listens, the viewer concludes. If there is one personal thing I want you to take from this reading, it is this. Sanatana Dharma is older and stranger and wilder than the political project that has appropriated the phrase. Vedic civilization predates Hindutva by 3,000 years. Jyôtish predates Hindutva. Tajika is in Jyôtish. Persian and Sanskrit astrologers worked together for centuries. The Unani Ayurveda tradition is a Greco-Persianate medical knowledge, folded into Indian medicine. The civilization Hindutva claims to defend was syncretic, plural, layered, and porous, and its survival depended on remaining so. There is no need for nationalism to honor the Vedas. There is no need for the demonization of Muslims to practice Jyôtish. There is no need for the burning of the world to claim the dignity of an ancient tradition. Bridges are possible. Mutual respect is possible. The traditions, when they have been left alone by political projects, have always known this. The figure on the card is the moon in the night before dawn. The figure in the chart is the steward who would be king. The figure in the news this past February stood at a podium in Jerusalem and used the word brother for a man who had enjoyed the killing of 70,000 innocent civilians. I want to mention the words of David Frawley, an American Vedic scholar, whose books on Tantra and the Mahavidya goddesses I have learned a great deal from, and whose political views I reject with everything I have. Frawley wrote in one of his political essays defending the Hindutva project that Hinduism is the only religion that has not produced a totalitarian movement on its own. I do not believe him. I do not believe the project he is defending. I do not believe that Sanatana Dharma has been served by the man who claimed to defend it. Read the chart, watch the news, listen to what the man says, listen especially to what the man does not say. Listen to the 70,000 he did not name. And most importantly, listen to your own heart and soul. And then reach out to actual living Muslims. Build a bridge by yourself. You might be surprised by what you may find beyond the narrow window of your Palantir becomes smartphone. The diagnosis is in front of you. Make of it what you will.